Hi, welcome to CMMC Automation. On this channel, we share with you tips on how to automate your CMMC compliance efforts using ChatGPT to save your company considerable time and resources. My name is Derek Phillips. I am the president and founder of Aspire Cyber. We specialize in helping small defense contractors prepare for their CMMC assessments. Also, I am a certified CMMC assessor and instructor. Let's get to the content.
Initially, when I started this video series, I told you that I was going to go through each of the NIST SP 800-171 control families, which there are 14, and essentially just show you how to use ChatGPT to automate a lot of those activities required by the practices. However, I'm actually going to take a different approach now where I'm going to go into more detail. So I'm actually going to walk through each of the 110 practices and the 320 assessment objectives. Every video that I record is just going to be for one practice and the associated assessment objectives. So let's get started. In this video, I will be using the CMMC assessment guides. So you can find these guides on the DoD CIO website. And yeah, they're publicly available. Anyone can download them. But the reason I like using these is because assessment guides, they have just additional sections for discussion and also examples to help you understand, okay, what's the context of the practice and assessment objectives. And those examples really help in terms of letting you know what that practice is looking for. But you also can go to the NIST website and just download NIST 800-171 Alpha. That's the assessment guide. And it's going to have the same information, but it's not going to have the examples and discussion section. So we will be using ChatGPT. That's my favorite. I know there are other chat bots available now. You have Bard. You also have Bing through Microsoft. However, I still like ChatGPT a lot. And this is what we'll be using in this video series. You're welcome to use whatever you prefer, and hopefully the approach should be the same. As you can see, I do have ChatGPT Plus. I paid $20 per month. However, you still can use the free version to do everything I'm going to show you to do. And I believe that ChatGPT 4 is available on the free version. So that is what I'll be using. But you see as you go through the version, so ChatGPT 3.5, that's the previous version. And default, it is faster, but compared to ChatGPT 4, it's not. The reasoning is not as good. It's not as concise, but ChatGPT 3 is faster. However, for our purposes, ChatGPT 4 is going to be what I'm going to be using. Now, as you can see, it does say GPT-4 currently has a cap of 25 messages every 3 hours. So that is going to be one of the drawbacks of using ChatGPT-4. There will be a limit on how much you can use it, 25 messages every 3 hours, versus if you're using GPT-3.5 on the paid version, there's no limit. And then also on the free version, I don't know what the limit is, but it's much greater than ChatGPT 4. The first thing we want to do, we want to let ChatGPT know what role we want it to assume. And we're going to prompt it by saying, yeah, I want you to assume the role of a cybersecurity consultant that specializes in helping defense industrial base comply with NIST 800-171. That is going to be our starting point. So we want to give ChatGPT some context. And remember, we're prompting it to give us the information that we need. The higher quality information that you provide, the higher quality that your output, the responses will be. So let's get started. Now ChatGPT is just responding, letting us know, all right, this is what I can help you achieve. So it can help with the gap analysis, security policy development, security awareness training, technical implementation. Can help perform a risk assessment, Can help with continuous monitoring, documentation and reporting. So great, ChatGPT. I'm looking forward to working together with you. So this gives you an overview of everything. ChatGPT says, all right, for NIST SP 801-171, also known as CMMC level 1 and 2 and 3, this is all the things I can help you with, all the activities I can help essentially automate. And that's what you'll be learning in this video series. So as promised, it's going to be essentially 110 videos because there are 110 practices in this SP 801-171. So I'm going to walk you through each practice with the corresponding assessment objectives. So for this specific practice, we're going to be using the CMMC self-assessment guide for level 1. Just as a reminder, so for CMMC level 1, it is self-assessment. It does not require an independent assessment performed by a C3PAO. The first practice for CMMC level 1 is going to be AC.L1-3.1.1. Now, if you're using the NIST SP 801-171 Alpha, that assessment guide, it would just show 3.1.1. So they are the same, but CMMC adds the domain and the level in the naming convention. So for access control, I mentioned I'm going to go through each practice. So this is the actual practice. We want to limit information system access to authorized users, processes acting on behalf of authorized users or devices, including other information systems. So this is the practice we need to satisfy. And then as far as assessment objectives, let us know, okay, what needs to be determined. So as you're performing your internal self-assessment, you're looking at the assessment objectives to determine first, all right, are authorized users identified? So are you identifying your authorized users? Anyone who has access to your systems, and the scope for this CMMC level 1 self-assessment is systems that process, store, or transmit FCI, that federal contract information. The definition for FCI is fairly broad. It's any federal contract information that is not public. So that could be information that's in your RFP, any emails, any information that you receive in the performance of your contract, or again, doing the RFP process that's not public information, then that's going to be considered federal contract information. So for this level 1 practice, any information that's not public, that's federal contract information. So you need to protect it. So when we're saying, okay, your authorized users are identified, any of your authorized users, whether it's employees, contractors, partners, if they have access to that federal contract information, then they need to be identified. So we're going to walk through each of these assessment objectives. But yeah, keep in mind, if you are performing your self-assessment and you don't look at the assessment objectives, then you can't confidently say that you have met this practice. And using the CMMC assessment guide, it gives you additional sections. So it gives you discussion sections, give you more context about the practice. It's letting you also know, giving you further discussion, giving you examples of how you can satisfy this practice. These are the 3 different test methods that you can use. So you can examine evidence, was access control policy, access control list, etc., or you can perform an interview, or you can test it. So pretty much, really, this is guided towards the level 2 assessments. The C3PO assessors will be using to validate that you have satisfied all of the assessment objectives, then they'll be able to mark the practice as met. So the first practice that we're going to focus on today in this video is going to be 3.1.1. Before I input the prompts for the practice and assessment objectives, I want to give ChatGPT a little more guidance on what I'm expecting for the responses, the output. And just to save on the cap, so I'm going to stop generating because I didn't need really a response for this. Remember, we have 25 messages capped at for ChatGPT 4, so I don't really need the details for this one. I just wanted to let ChatGPT know I'm looking for specific administrative and technical solutions. stop generating. Okay, so I think we have enough. We've given ChatGPT enough context to get started. I'm going to paste in the practice. So we want to limit information system access to authorized users, processes acting on behalf of authorized users or devices, including other information. So ChatGPT should know, okay, to provide me with guidance based on the context that I gave it. So it's telling me a solution. It's saying, all right, I need to implement role-based access control and multi-factor authentication. So administrative tasks, going to need to establish a clear policy for access control, outlining users' roles, permissions, and the process for granting and revoking access. All right. And then technical, setting up that role-based access control. And then we need to configure MFA. It's going to add that extra level of security for user authentication. So it gives us an estimated time 1 or 2 weeks to complete this. And then expertise, we're going to need someone that has access control and authentication expertise. And then saying it's the estimated cost, $3,000 to $5,000, depending on the complexity and the systems involved. So I think that's a pretty good starting point from the practice level. And now we're going to dive even deeper, making sure that we cover all the assessment objectives. And keep in mind, this is just an estimate. You'll have to verify for your own organization what the costs are going to be, but just give you a good starting point. So now I'm adding in the assessment objective. This is the first of 7 for this 3.1.1 practice. And it's saying authorized users are identified. So just for me pasting in the assessment objective, let's see what ChatGPT 4 gives us. So in order to identify authorized users, ChatGPT is saying the solution, we need to implement a centralized user identity management system. So something like Active Directory, for example. So we're going to have a policy for user identification. It needs to include usernames and the process for creating, modifying, and deactivating user accounts. We're going to have that centralized identity management system, such as Active Directory or IAM solution, because we need to manage and store the user identities. And this gives us an estimated cost and time. So that's the first assessment objective. From my perspective, as a certified CMMC provisional assessor, I think that guidance is pretty accurate. You're certainly going to need an identity and access management solution. The most popular one is like Active Directory to manage your user identities. For each user account that has access to federal contract information, then those systems we need to be able to identify those users and track them. Also, keep in mind for any response that ChatGPT provides you, you can always follow with more questions, get additional details as far as if you're not clear on the guidance ChatGPT has provided. Yeah, just keep prompting it for more information. And just to show you, so we started out with the practice. This is the first prompt that I input, and then I copied and pasted the first assessment objective, and essentially we're just going down the list, each assessment objective. Now the second assessment objective, I want to make sure that processes acting on behalf of authorized users are identified. So we need that policy. So the access management policy. We need to create dedicated service accounts for processes and make sure they're associated to specific users. Configuring applications. Make sure they have the minimum required privileges. So this one's really high level. For each process that you have, you certainly want to make sure it's associated to a user. So I want to give some more additional information for this one. I'm going to prompt ChatGPT to list example processes to give you a better idea of what this assessment objective is referring to when it says processes. So we have those scheduled tasks. Those are going to be automated. So for example, if you have like automated backup, automated updates running, any type of automated process needs to be associated to a specific user. Email services, we got the database, web services, file transfer, backup, and disaster recovery services. This gives you more context when it's referring to the automated processes. So in your organization, you'll need to identify all of the processes that occur on the in-scope systems. For this level 1 practice, we're referring to systems that process, store, or transmit federal contract information. And once we identify those processes, we need to make sure that those processes are associated to a specific user. We need to be able to track it. Moving on to the next assessment objective. So now I want to ensure that devices and other systems authorized to connect to the system are identified. So we'll have that network access control system to make sure that just rogue devices can't access our network, that they'll need to authenticate first. So in your organization, if someone brings in their personal laptop or network device and try to connect to your corporate network, you should have some type of network access control system in place to prevent that and prompt them for authentication so you can track any devices that's on your network. So we're still always going to have our policy. Our policy is going to provide that governance to let everyone know what is required, what's prohibited, and just to give your end users guidance. But yeah, as far as a technical solution, we're going to need a network access control solution. And we also can have a mobile device management system, unified endpoint management, just other types of technical controls you can use to accomplish this assessment objective. And still giving us the estimated time and cost. So we can go a step further. We can say, let's get some example NAC solutions. So we have the Cisco Identity Services engine. So that's one I've used in the past, really popular. Do we have Aruba? Very familiar with Aruba ClearPass. Just pointing you in the right direction as far as solutions that you can look at to make sure that you satisfy this practice. So Fortinet. So the list goes on, but we're going to stop generating. Remember, we're trying to make sure we stay within our cap. Now, this is only for ChatGPT 4, but for ChatGPT 3.5, yeah, it doesn't matter. You don't have a cap. So for the next assessment objective, we want to make sure that system access is limited to authorized users. So we need to implement strong authentication. So again, we're going to have that clear access control policy. Having that role-based access control solution and having a multi-factor authentication. So you're going to see as we go through each assessment objective that the recommended administrative and technical solutions are going to overlap. For example, role-based access control, that's going to satisfy more than one assessment objective. The next assessment objective, we have system access is limited to processes acting on behalf of authorized users. Remember, any of those automated processes should only be acting on behalf of authorized users that are identified for each process. So we need to have service accounts and process level access control. And then we're going to need to have dedicated service accounts acting on behalf of authorized users. So in an organization, you don't want to have a service account that's not acting on behalf of authorized user. In that case, you're not able to track who is authorizing that process. So to satisfy this practice, you need to be able to track that. This is the last assessment objective for this practice. So we want to make sure that system access is limited to authorized devices, including other systems. So still, that network access control device will help us satisfy this assessment objective. Now, ChatGPT has provided us guidance for the 3.1.1 practice, giving us technical and administrative solutions that we can use to satisfy the practice and all the assessment objectives. So at this point, you would just continue to prompt ChatGPT for additional guidance if you're unclear how to implement any of the controls for this practice. My next prompt is going to be summarize the guidance provided. It's basically at this point we're summarizing all of the guidance. So we know we need to implement role-based access control and multi-factor authentication. We need to identify all our service accounts and assign them to users, authorized users. We need to make sure that we have a network access control device. And then it's giving us the estimated costs. So that's pretty helpful. Again, this is going to be just an estimate. You're going to actually have to, once you identify a solution you want to use, you need to contact those companies to get specific pricing. Now we have that guidance. Let's go a step further and say, let's see, provide me with a project plan and timeline. So really want to make sure that the guidance we receive from ChatGPT is actionable, clear, and concise so we can execute on the guidance. First, we're going to have that initiation and project policy development. We're starting off with that policy, having that governance in place. ChatGPT is breaking it down by week for this project plan. Week 9, we're doing employee training and documentation. Week 10 is going to be that project review and closure, making sure that we implemented all of the recommended solutions. From an administrative standpoint, it's going to be a policies, completing the training, and then also we have the technical solutions in place. So another thing that ChatGPT can assist with is it can assist you with configuring. Once you select the technical solution, can help you with the configuration, give you guidance on that, and then also with the policy development. Let's show you how we can use it for policy development. I'll start off by saying what sections should be included in a access control policy. So it should clearly outline the rules, procedures, and guidelines for managing the access to resources. We should have an introduction, policy statement, roles and responsibilities, user account management, access request and approval, access review and revalidation. All of these sections should be included in your access control policy. Training and awareness, monitoring and auditing, policy enforcement and sanctions. And then the next thing you could do is prompt ChatGPT to actually create a access control policy for you. Now that would just be a template and you'll still need to customize it to your organization, but ChatGPT can assist with that as well. But don't take my word for it. Let's see it in action. I'm creating an access control policy for my company. And now ChatGPT is doing its thing. like magic. Obviously, you would just put in your company name in the brackets, and you'll need to add any additional customization, your specific controls. There you go. Now it's giving you each section. I'll give you just verbiage that you can use in your policy. You can expound upon that or remove verbiage, but at least you're not starting from scratch. You're not looking at a blank piece of paper and trying to figure out what needs to go in my access control policy. ChatGPT is assisting you with that. So when I say automation, this is what I mean, where, hey, it's giving you that good starting point. You're not starting from scratch, and you can build from there. As someone who has reviewed and created thousands of policies over my career, I'll say that the policies that ChatGPT creates are really good. Again, I emphasize you still need to customize it to your organization, add any additional information that's specific to your organization. But in terms of a starting point and just good verbiage to having a policy and the formatting, being comprehensive, yeah, it's pretty impressive. And I would say, again, as a certified CMMC provisional assessor, I would say that the policies that ChatGPT creates would certainly satisfy the CMMC level 2 requirements. So you can just view this as your template. You would take this, copy and paste it into your policy template, and then manipulate it from there. So now going back to the CMMC Level 1 Assessment Guide, we went through the practices, we went through the assessment objectives. Now in this section, this is how we can either examine, interview, or test. So under the examine, this is actually reviewing documentation. But for CMMC Level 1, there are no documentation requirements, only Level 2. However, let's just look at some of the type of documentation. So we've already did the access control policy. We also would need procedures, which ChatGPT can assist with that as well. Same process as prompting it to create the policies. System security plan can help with that as well. ChatGPT has given us recommended administrative and technical solutions for NIST 800-171-3.1.1 access control practice. There are a total of 22 practices in access control domain. So we just went through the first one. Before we wrap up this video, I'm going to prompt ChatGPT just for some additional information that can provide you more value. Now we're back in ChatGPT. So I know many of you maybe are working from home remotely. We're not in the office. So let's see if ChatGPT will give us some additional guidance for making sure that we're satisfying this practice for remote workers. Provide guidance for 3.1.1 if employees are working remotely. ChatGPT was thinking. Make sure we have secure remote access. So any authorized users that are accessing the systems with federal contract information on it, they should be using VPN to connect. We should require multi-factor authentication. Make sure we have security on the endpoints, the antivirus. Make sure all employees' devices meet the security requirements. Can't forget, so we have the laptops, but also don't forget about those tablets and smartphones. Make sure their devices have full disk encryption. Make sure we're using some type of mobile device management solution. Make sure we're limiting access. Make sure they have the minimum level of access, so that least privileged need to know approach. Make sure we're doing that security awareness and training. So a lot of the same approaches you would take for employees working in the office. Yeah, you're just going to have additional security measures in place for teleworkers. So let's see if I can get ChatGPT to give me a chart format. This is what I really love. I think it's magical about ChatGPT, where you can have it give you a chart of all of the guidance that it's provided you. So this makes it really actionable, easy to work through, and just consolidates all that information. So that's pretty cool. So we have the recommendation, description, implementation of everything you need to do to satisfy Practice 3.1.1. And a lot of these controls, administrative and technical controls, will satisfy multiple practices within the access control domain. As I mentioned, there's 22 total. So this chart summarizes the key recommendations for ensuring all access and ensure secure access and compliance with NIST SP 800-171. So we also want to use this chart to summarize our project plan. Let's do that. If I can spell, summarize the project plan. So now you'll have an output of an actual project plan again, so you can get started on executing the compliance activities. So whenever I'm meeting with clients, talking to defense contractors, one of the things they always say is, I don't know where to start. Where do I begin? And I'm showing you exactly step by step how to get started, how to really streamline this process, use ChatGPT to automate as much as possible. So there you have it. This is pretty impressive output so far what we received. And so over here you see the different conversations. So this is a conversation we've had today with ChatGPT, and it'll remember everything in your conversation until you delete it. So I do want to emphasize, you don't want to put any sensitive information about your company to ChatGPT. You want to make sure that you're protecting the privacy and confidentiality of your sensitive information. So you keep it real high level generic, but everything you put into this conversation until you delete it will be remembered. And this is what we're going to use throughout this entire series, this same conversation. So the next video, when we do 3.1.2, we'll still be using the same conversation. That's pretty much it for 3.1.1. If you have any questions, any additional prompts you would like to see me use, or just any outputs you want to get from ChatGPT, feel free to reach out to me at dphillips@aspirecyber.com. Also comment on this video. But yeah, I'm here to be a resource for you. Aspire Cyber specializes in helping defense contractors satisfy all of the NIST SP 800-171 practices, so helping you navigate through this process. And my contribution with these videos is to be that, giving you step-by-step guidance. So if you don't hire Aspire Cyber or any consultant company, you can do it yourself. Now, for level 1, that's certainly feasible. For CMMC level 2, I wouldn't recommend it. But either way, I'm going to give you a step-by-step guidance on helping you navigate CMMC. All right, so there you have it. I hope that you got a lot of value from this video. Again, I'm going to walk through all 110 practices. So each video is going to walk through one practice and the corresponding assessment objectives to help you navigate the complex world of CMMC. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, dphillips@aspirecyber.com. I'm always happy to answer your questions, to chat with you. The videos do not give you enough guidance, or you just don't have the time or energy to deal with the CMMC. Certainly Aspire Cyber can help. We offer a CMMC in the box solution where we handle everything you need to prepare for a CMMC level 2 assessment.
Thanks for watching CMMC Automation. I hope that you got a lot of value from today's video and you use ChatGPT to automate your CMMC efforts. It's going to save your company a lot of time and money. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me at Aspire Cyber. Also, you can leave your questions in the comments down below. Be sure to subscribe because it helps out this channel immensely. I really appreciate it, and good luck to you on your CMMC journey.